Blog Talk Radio.
Contact Reports 117. Ta. 1. As you see, we all came here to speak with you, and please, don't set off so angrily again, like you did on last Saturday, when my daughter came to you. 2. Indeed, we cannot forbid you, if you want to do it anyway, but I would like to ask you not to do so. 3. We understand very well that you're very angry, but you should also try in this whole undertaking to understand us, we who also don't have endless time to deal exclusively with the adversities that are still always continuing in your group and leading everything to destruction. 4. For about a year, it has been impossible for us to assign new and very important tasks to your group because internal group intrigues prevented this. 5. Constant disagreements, quarrels, egoism, jealousy and lies as well as many other emotional things created a climate that had to lead everything to destruction. 6. Besides these things, however, still also recklessness, maliciousness, and malice endanger everything. 7. So it has also remained invariable to this day that by a certain party, internal group concerns are still carried outward, which really should remain only internal group knowledge. 8. That group member, who so far hasn't stopped and refrained from this doing bordering on betrayal, should now decide whether he will continue to indulge in this doing or completely strive, at last, only for the purpose of the group and its task, without maintaining further contacts with group members who have gone away, who are always informed by this group member about the state of the group concerns, etc. 9. I still want to conceal the name in my statement, so that renewed disputes won't arise as a result of the naming, and so that the group member concerned won't be attacked because of that. 10. In this regard, I would also like to ask you not to mention the name for the time being, just as you have done this so far. 11. But should the group member concerned not immediately change in his mentality, then you may no longer be silent about it and have to report it to the group, upon which an exclusion from the group is then to be decided and put into effect for the member concerned. Billy, actually, I am glad that all of you have come here, Ta, but on the other hand, it is quite damn unpleasant for me. After your speech, it also seems that you now still want to continue again, even though I had an argument with Quetzal a month ago and told him that he should go to hell. Why? You may, indeed, know this. It is, in fact, the same reason why I told Semyas the same thing on last Saturday. And on account of the group member concerned, I would like to say that all talking probably won't help anything because all reproaches using your objections mentioned are categorically denied, even though Quetzal has regularly been making very precise analyses for many months, and even already for 2 years, which prove that everything really is as Quetzal said to me. The group member denies all this, however, at all costs, which is why I have become tired of speaking further with him about it. Ta. 12. These things are unknown to me, and your explanation also leads me right to the incidents with my daughter on last Saturday and with Quetzal and you a month ago, since he made reproaches to you regarding your neglect of duty. 13. He is only here today because we asked him, for he wouldn't have gotten in touch with you again on his own initiative. Billy, I also wouldn't have done it from my side. Ta. 14. We know that. 15. It is, however, also very well known to us that you both respect each other very much, despite the unpleasant incident, and that you are uncommonly good friends, and don't preserve any improper thoughts of one another, as this is also the case between you and my daughter. 16. Quetzal and you, however, and this is very strange, you both have a hotness in yourselves, which causes that you are able to act illogically against your better knowledge. 17. And even though you show each other very much respect, you throw reproaches at each other, which hit very hard and cause a peculiar and illogical defensiveness, which is grounded in a peculiar pride. 18. An attempt at an analysis of this gave me the extremely interesting solution that this pride has formed in you both out of a hard drive for self-preservation, which goes far beyond a normal human will for self-preservation. 19. This super will, if I may so designate it, makes you demand very much more of yourselves and then also enforce this than what your powers would permit you or would hold in themselves. 20. So it happens that you, once you have exhausted your last power reserves, witness new power through your consciousness in some way that is unknown to me, which then pushes you both forward like a mechanical device, during which it seems that your power substance would be infinite. 21. In this moment, you always exceed yourself and ignore all physical laws. 22. Your entire body and all systems suddenly begin to function like a machine, by what means it then acts like a robot, which stubbornly and inexorably pursues and also reaches its goal according to a determined programming. 23. This, which I must admit, I have never experienced with human life forms in this manner, and everything first became clear to me by the fact that you two got in each other's hair a month ago, if I may so say it, and because of that, Quetzal then came to me in the lack of understanding of these things, after which I busied myself with him for 3 weeks and found out the core of things. 24. Truly, you both probably represent two cases that don't find their equals so easily. 25. In your peculiar natures, you two see many things from your own perspectives that are only valid for yourselves, but these are, interestingly enough, so mutually alike for you both that they are absolutely identical according to my computer analyses and don't show the slightest difference. 26. So it seems as if you are, in this respect, the most absolute twins that there can be at all. 27. But now, this equality leads to the fact that you judge each other exactly according to the estimation of an achievement, as this is true for you specifically and personally, without regard to any possible illnesses, etc. that are germinating or that have unfolded in you, which must automatically act on everything in an impairing manner. 28. On your part, you have now brought your entire nervous system and some other things in your body to rebellion, as this is also the case with Quetzal, who, just like you, is ruined slowly and over a long time by the grievances in your group, but unfortunately, we didn't notice this because Quetzal concealed this condition from us, loyal to your common characteristic, that you both must continue to strive for a set goal until the very end, when your last powers have already left you. 29. So you two confronted each other a month ago in a mutual, ruined condition and could no longer understand yourselves because you both came from exactly the same perspectives, namely from the perspective of the pride animating you and steadily propelling you, which doesn't let you two admit that even your truly inhuman strengths had reached their limits once and had even reached these at the same time. 30. So it could only arise that you both clashed in that way, which was the case. 31. At the same time, it was just puzzling to me that you both, nevertheless, testified the greatest of all esteem and all respect for one another, but this then ultimately pointed me in the right direction. 32. Other human life forms would have generated a rage in themselves against each other, which wasn't the case with you, however. 33. In you two, there was, despite the incident that would have generated very malicious enmity among two other human beings, respect and the highest esteem for one another, and your rage was solely due to your power exhaustion and the things that had led to it. 34. Because of that, however, you both acted illogically and saw all things in yourselves as worse and more hopeless than they are in truth. 35. Already months ago, we granted to the group members that we still want to set a 6-month time period, which already ends in the month of March, 1979. 36. but we also want to keep to this time, as it was discussed. 37. If it should turn out by then, however, that the necessary changes haven't arrived, then we would have to recognize everything as useless and break off all further contacts associated with the task of us all. 38. Of course, it was very unpleasant that Quetzal had to find extremely unpleasant things through his extremely precise analyses of each group member over a daily 24-hour period. 39. But even though these analyses have yielded very poor and partially even frightening results, we don't want to break our promise and will still keep the grant of time of 6 months, which expires in the month of March of next year. 40. For your part, you, too, should, despite your destroyed nervous system, keep this in mind and be helpful to us in this. 41. Sure, for a whole month now, you have set yourself on the fact that you would not continue, so your thoughts are dominated by this. 42. But what might not be possible for any other human being apart from you and Quetzal, you can achieve, if you only want. 43. You were able to destroy your entire dominating picture built by you within a fraction of a second, and to continue again where you left off a month ago. 44. Do you want to do that? Billy, for that, I need some time to reflect. I first have to plow through your long speech once again. 45. You should have as much time as you need for it. Billy, okay, give me half a minute. This time should suffice. 46. That is very little. You can. Yes, 1. Excuse me, Father, but his thinking is different than ours. 2. You may be assured that when he says 30 seconds, this time is enough for him. Quetzal, 1. That is of correctness. 47. You must, indeed, know that very well, Quetzal. 48. So let it be thee. Billy, okay, just leave it. Well, I must accept what you have said, for it all sounds very logical. Fine, I will continue on, until you yourselves have decided in March of next year. I believe that this should be fair. Yes, 3. Sure, we didn't expect it differently from you, and I wasn't mistaken in you, despite your rage, when you went away so abruptly on last Saturday. 4. Indeed, I was sad, but I knew that everything would be good again. 5. I simply couldn't be deceived in you. 6. But on the other hand, we are all too interconnected with one another for us not to be able to clarify such disagreements in the long run. 7. Therefore, I also gave myself no worries, even though everything lasted rather long because Father first wanted to clarify things. Billy, thank you, girl, you were very dear. And you, Quetzal, my son, you know that it suits me. Quetzal, too. It shouldn't be like that, my friend. 3. We understand ourselves that way. Billy, I think so. Thank you. 49. Then this case should have taken care of itself. 50. You two are, indeed, special human beings, which I must say. 51. 2 people other than you would have become malicious to each other and possibly enemies. 52. But this doesn't change the fact that Quetzal was of complete correctness with his statements regarding the individual and group members and the cited grievances. 53. The analyses have, in fact, yielded this, and indeed, over a longer period of time, according to which no excuses at all can be given that the analyses were made at the moment of a psychological or physical low, etc., as this is stated among the group members as a continuous excuse, as I know very well. 54. So this means that our instructions shall apply, that we will only watch during the promised and therefore granted time, and will then break off any contacts in the sense of the mission if until then, everything hasn't fundamentally turned to the good and better in the forms that are given by the established rules of regulation, etc. 55. This is already irrevocable and final. 56. Until that point in time, however, we want to continue working and to fulfill our duty in the conventional framework. 57. Should it turn out, however, by the month of March, 1979, that the necessary changes haven't arrived in the various group members through their own efforts, then everything else relating to this would be pointless and would bring no further successes, which would have to lead to a final abort of all undertakings. 58. In this regard, it is very deplorable in general how few efforts have been made by the individuals to bring about the necessary changes in themselves, though such a change in a reason-gifted human being of Earth is only a matter of very short time but not of years. Billy, that is also my view. Around 2 years have now passed, and still, practically nothing has been achieved, as I see things. In my view, a human being needs, however, no more than 2 months for such a change. But continuously, ones want to talk their way out of this and make excuses that they are just misguided human beings of Earth, and that it can't be expected that they achieve such a change in a short time. This view, which I find rather dumb and egoistic, I cannot represent, and I find that it should be possible for even only a halfway reasonable human being to bring about the suitable change and mentality in himself within 2 months, if one only wants this. 59. That is of very exact correctness, as I must grant you. 60. In this direction, I have pursued my studies and, as a result, found that the average human being of Earth requires an average time of 58 days to bring such a developmental change and change in mentality in himself to resounding success. 61. But human beings of Earth with a knowledge of that state, as the group members exhibited, only require a maximum time of 36 days. 62. But at the same time, the will is authoritative, as he correctly said. 63. But this is exactly what isn't addressed at all in the individual group members because they don't try to develop such in themselves. 64. The result of our analysis showed that as a rule, all proposals, advice, and findings are accepted purely superficially and only verbally, while in the interior, however, nothing at all is thought toward a change. 65. In their interiors, various group members are not at all willing to undergo a change because they just want to continue living in their old lifestyle. 66. At the same time, very bad and untrue excuses appear, like, for example, that one must first think things over and sort things out in one's own mind, before one can come to a more binding arrangement, etc. 67. But truthfully, these are only dishonest excuses from a wide variety of worthless reasons. 68. These cannot find any validity, however, because they do not correspond to the truth. 69. This is also the reason that various group members, for whom it would be urgently necessary, are not willing to be residents in the center or in the immediate vicinity, so that they could stay and be active in the center in a sufficient measure. 70. Various ones are, evidently, still not clear to themselves about the fact that they can't simply stay away in the present time from all obligations in the center and all obligations and then desire, nevertheless, to be a beneficiary in the next life as another person. 71. It is an erroneous assumption that solely the storage of the fluidal forces would suffice, so that they could pleasurably sit in the center in a later life. 72. Oh no, it still isn't so far that the mentality storage automatically runs with each meditation exercise. 73. This, however, determines whether an incarnation in the center will be acceptable. 74. But if this mentality isn't moderate enough in all necessary concerns, then by the control disk, which was brought into position particularly for the Sahar Center, the entire storage becomes completely eliminated for the person concerned upon his or her death. 75. This prevents that unworthy group members can unjustifiably find a warm camp in which they intend to sunbathe at later times. 76. We have been forced to this step by the dishonorable and partially malicious behavior of various group members. 77. This ensures that treacherous elements.
Hello, 828. Did you have a question?
Hi, yeah, I had gotten a one of your emails on my phone, and the topic that you had was really interesting. So I'm not online except by my phone, so I was enjoying listening, and I wanted to give you this information. I have recently filed a federal civil rights lawsuit in Asheville, North Carolina, and one of the things that I stated was for my race, and my race as in white/rainbow tribe of people who want to live as a light worker, starseed, and want to live in peace, harmony, and love. So I don't know if that could be of interest to you, but I hope that you could help spread the word that I am doing this federal lawsuit to get a First Amendment platform for we the people to speak on. That has been taken away, and we the people have so much information, and our government is denying us. So I'm doing it under natural law.
That's very interesting. So you're kind of suing for your First Amendment rights.
Correct. But see, there's much more into it. It's not just that. We did have a public access station. Our local government refused our funding because we were revealing too much corruption. I was falsely arrested. I was thrown out of commissioner meetings for standing up for the people's rights. I was falsely arrested, convicted, had to go to court, appealed it. They went so far as to falsely arrest me, bogus charges, to silence my voice.
What did they arrest you for?
They arrested me for disorderly conduct, resisting a police officer, and impeding traffic. The disorderly was linked to common law, which was Ku Klux Klan, standing on a highway, inciting a riot, brandishing a weapon with threats of murder. And I'm a reverend. I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm a mystic.
What's your name?
My name is Lisa, L-I-S-A, Bain, B-A-I-N, Landis, L-A-N-D-I-S. You can put Reverend in front of that, and I'm better known as Glow Lady, G-L-O-L-A-D-Y.
Well, Glow Lady, best of luck to you, and I think we are dealing with a very tyrannical government. And
we are. Who
knows what's going to happen in the future?
We need to stand up.
Yes, we do. Thank you for calling in. I'm going to put you back on hold and start playing.
And I'm going to enjoy listening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, folks, we'll pick back up in the MEIER case now.
I no longer thought about it. 10. This was as certain to me as also the fact that you would remember this again and then act accordingly. 11. There wasn't another possibility for me. 12. It was, however, only your rage that had let you forget everything. Billy, you speak to me from the heart, my child. So it was, in fact, which is why I then also had rather unpleasant hours on Sunday. But Quetzal, you once told me some time ago that you would attend to the concerns regarding the center, so namely in reference to the bequest. At the time, you gave me advice, which I didn't want to accept for reasons known to you. Interestingly enough, however, now also Elsie has approached me with the same result that you have worked out. About that, first of all the question, have you influenced her somehow? Quetzal, 4. No, I haven't done that, but if Elsie has arrived at the same result, then that testifies to the fact that she assesses things correctly and has fathomed certain things in a logical form. 5. Furthermore, I've talked about that with Tom Semyas, and we have come to the following result, which should not be officially made known, however, which is why I must ask you to deliver the necessary advice to Elsie in a separate form. 6. I'll give you this advice at the end of all our remarks, so you can receive it separately at the end of the later report transmission and write it down. 7. Unfortunately, we must take these concerns to hand and regulate them in this manner because the scheming among individual and group members has so pronounced that they would create interferences and renewed intrigues. 8. Thus, solely Elsie should be knowledgeable about these things, over which she must, however, maintain silence toward every group member under all circumstances. 9. Unfortunately, this isn't otherwise possible under the given circumstances. Billy, I know, but still, I fear that sometime later, the common suspicion will arise that I would have had my hands in play. I have had very damn bad experiences with such matters, my son. Ta, 87. That would probably be the last infamy that one could foist on you. 88. Elsie knows that everything isn't like that, which is why she should also attest in writing that you have nothing to do with that and that you also don't accept our and her solution. Billy, I have already told her that it doesn't suit me. Ta, 89. Then she is oriented about that and can also correctly hold everything affirmatively in writing. Billy, but still, it doesn't suit me. Ta, 90. We must act in accordance with the purpose and the given circumstances, and in accordance with the sense of duty to be expected. Billy, that is absolutely clear to me, but surely, there still would have been another solution. Ta, 91. Unfortunately no, at least not for the time being. 92. It will only change when the center is group property. Billy, then just do what you want. I am simply not in demand in this. Simus, 13. You wrong. 14. We understand your objections very well and also know that they are very justified, unfortunately. 15. However, the circumstances and all the conditions are, at present, truly given in such a way that we can only take this one possibility into consideration and declare it as a final solution. 16. In this regard, we have really analyzed and worked through everything conceivably possible for us and have found that this solution offers the only complete security. Billy, then it should just be like that. I probably can't do anything against it, even if I don't consider it to be right. Ta, 93. Any attempt against it would also be wrong and very unserviceable to the overall task, my friend. Billy, then for my part it shall be like that. But may I ask another question? Simus, 17. Sure, just ask. Billy, well, it's like this, I would gladly like to know. Can one of you tell me whether Elsie was something in my last life? Damn. I mean, whether we knew each other. Simus, 18. No, that wasn't so, for at that time, she wasn't incorporated into an incarnation. Billy, and in my life before? Simus, 19. There, she was a friend. 20. But at that time, both of you were otherwise married up to the ends of your lives. 21. I wouldn't like to mention more about that for the time being. Billy, then please still tell me, however, whether Elsie has had one or two other incarnations since then. Simus, 22. Since then, it hasn't been only one, that is, not just the current one. Billy, that's sufficient for me, thanks. By the way, what I still wanted to say, out of the approximately 300 previously neglected pages of the last 2 years, I have reworked well over half in the meantime. If possible, I will still also create the remaining missing pages in the foreseeable future. Quetzal, 10. I know. You have finally laid out the law of love and the clarification of life and death. Semyas, 23. You have done this work in a very short time and admirably well, as Quetzal explained to me. 24. I estimated that you would need several months for that, as the subject matter of both works was extremely difficult. Billy, it has given me trouble all right, and indeed, a great deal, which I must admit. 94. But still, you have completed it very quickly. 95. I would like to ask that you make a copy of each work available to me. 96. My daughter Clea would also like a copy of each. Billy, you can have that. Indeed, Quetzal also wants one of each. Semyas, 25. You also shouldn't forget me. Billy, but I will always give you a copy of everything anyway. Semyas, 26. Sure, but these will always be assigned to our archive. 27. But I would still like to have a copy of each of these works for myself alone. Billy, okay, I will gladly do that. But tell me, how will you read my books, then? You only speak Greek, and we always have to use this translator together. How will you find your way in the books, then? 97. I let them be translated for me into my native language. 98. In all other respects, I have decided that next year, I will endeavor myself around the German language, if it should be decided in the month of March that we can continue to attend to our task and still fulfill this. Billy, man, I think that's great, but look here, I received these photos a few months ago from abroad, with the note that the pictures were made in a private museum of a man who had stolen some scrolls in an ancient grave somewhere in Egypt. I have also received the film of these pictures. What do you think of it, He looks closely at the photos and then puts them in a device, which looks like a screen, and then speaks some words that are unintelligible to me into the same device. 99. In a few minutes, we will have an analysis that tells us whether the image prints are genuine and whether the photograph material is old or new and, thus, whether it concerns a forgery or not. 100. The writing on the print really should be known to you, my friend. Billy, it is, indeed, known to me, as Froth and Ascot have striven to teach me this language. This concerns the Old Lyran language, which is extremely similar to our German language in very many values. So, for example, in the sentence structure and in many other things, like, for example, in sentence progression. 101. You still understand the language. 102. Do you also still understand how to speak it? Billy, with the speaking, it lacks quite enormously, but with the deciphering, it goes to some extent, although I had quite nasty difficulties with it at the beginning. 103. That you should practice the language again, for it is still current in certain planetary areas. 104. Maybe you can use it sometime. Billy, you're good. I already messed around with it for several months until I only had the alphabet together again and was able to decipher the writing, which has, indeed, no longer been current for around 8,000 years, and has probably also been completely forgotten by the human beings of Earth. 105. That is of correctness, but it amazes me that you have managed to decipher it. 106. After all, for approximately 15 years, you evidently no longer dealt with it. Billy, that may be right. 107. And the deciphering, is it of correctness? Billy, I hope. Here, you can see. He studies my arts of deciphering. 108. If I didn't see it for myself with my own eyes, I would have to doubt it. 109. You have deciphered everything flawlessly and have also translated it flawlessly into the German language, as my daughter just whispered to me. Billy, then I am, indeed, calmed. To me, it would be 110. One moment, my friend, we were getting the analysis. 111. Yes, look here, the prints are genuine and show a photographed material that is 8,000 years old. 112. It concerns a paper-like material that has all the properties of paper but is far more stable and was used by the old descendants of the Lyrians, who ultimately came to Earth. 113. This means that the man with whom you've spoken must, therefore, actually be in possession of 8,000-year-old original documents. 114. Where should this man live and what is his name? Billy. I don't know that, unfortunately, because that wasn't said to me. 115. That is a great pity, so we can probably hardly find him, although it would be very valuable to have some of these original documents because we ourselves also don't possess such kinds of documents. 116. Especially the contents of this document photographed here are very valuable. We also weren't aware that such exists. 117. May I keep one of these prints? Billy. But of course, you can even have 2 or 3 if you want. 118. That isn't necessary. 1 is quite enough. Billy. Then take 1. 119. I thank you very much. Astrust translator's note. The photo just mentioned, as found in this section of Contact 117 on page 310 of the German version of the Pleiadian/Pleiadian Contact Reports, Block 3, appears below. This is the same photo which appears on page 15 of Message from the Pleiades, Volume 4, which is shown below. Edward MEIER's German translation of this document does not appear in Block 3 of the German Contact Reports. But according to Christian Frenner of Fig, Switzerland, the following is MEIER's translation of such. Christian Frenner made an English translation of the above in 2007, which reads as follows. It has been said in the prophetic sentence of the herald Enoch, he in his mission as prophet will be, live, again and repeated lives in multiple reincarnations as most important herald of the teachings of the Spirit, as they are given in the laws of creation, and brought and announced to the earth human on Terra by the guardian angels from the stars of Lyra and Vega. The herald Enoch says, I am the herald of truth, and in this mission I will be, live, again in important times by the names, ELIA, JESAIA, Jeremiah, JMMANUEL, MUHAMMED, BILLI, and so I will serve the human beings as a prophet among 7 times, before the change for the compliance with the laws and commandments of creation will take place in their thinking, convictions. So I will be, live, in reincarnation in the new time, when space will be conquered, and when the guardian angels from foreign stars will appear once again. My reincarnation in the time will be as Billy and with the name Edward MEIER, and I will dwell in a land of peace in the north, which will be called Schwyz, Switzerland. The human being then may listen to my voice, so he may be led into the light of the teaching of the Spirit. Now, the story relating to how this document came into MEIER's possession, as given by Wendell Stevens in the preface of Message from the Pleiades, Volume 4, is very different from the story found in Contact 117. Wendell tells it as follows. This is a scrap of burned paper that Billy MEIER let me examine when I discovered it in his simple wooden desk drawer along with slides and photocopies. The story he told me was that Asket, the cosmonaut from the Dal universe system, took him one day to an Egyptian tomb in the pyramid that had been blown open with dynamite by an English archaeologist in the past. She wanted to show him something of interest at that site. Using the cloaking devices to render them invisible to others, they went past the guard and into the tomb. There, Asket stirred some burned fragments of paper in a corner of the tomb and fished out a particular scorched scrap, seared to a soft brown color, and burned around the edges as though it were in the center of a number of pages, having all the outside pages and edges burned away in a brief fire. She handed it to him, saying that he might find it of interest to him. He said, "Why so? I can't even read it." At that, she took the scrap and asked him for a piece of paper and pencil, which he produced from his pocket. Oscar then copied several of the strange characters from the burnt scrap and marked the German equivalents under them on MEIER's paper. Handing both pieces of paper back to MEIER, she said that from that, he could interpret the rest and read the page for himself. Once translated, the new words on the page were still not clear because some of the translated words were not in German, but involved words from other Romance languages based on Latin. We could not find any German speaker who could read the translated message to us, until we showed our work to Michael Hesman, a multilingual German UFO researcher who speaks and reads 5 languages fluently. He came up with the interpretation we have printed here. Please note that the last name in the line of 6 in the 6th line is composed of 5 characters. According to our interpretations, it translates as Billy, the German spelling for his American nickname. I did not get this translation from Billy MEIER because he had not translated it by the time I photographed it for my files. We have been unable to properly identify the symbol form used in the original note. This seems to be too elaborate a mystery to be a hoax on the part of anybody because it never went anywhere and has not been released anyplace for 15 years, up to now. This is a long time to wait, indeed, if it was planned as bait for me. The following is a clarification on why Wendell's account differs from that of Contact Reports 117, the document that appears in Message from the Pleiades, Volume 4 on page 15, and in the German version of the Pleiadian/Pleiadian Contact Reports on page 310 is also found in MEIER's photo index, where it appears as photo number 1059, along with an explanation. According to Christian Frenner of Fig, Switzerland, the English translation of the explanation reads as follows. A Mr. Jim Crowley from England secretly photographed an ancient document that is in possession of a noble private collector, and he sent Billy photos and negatives and asked him whether he, Billy, or the Pleiadians/Pleiadians could decipher the letters. According to his information, the noble Englishman purchased the partially burnt document, together with other specimens, in Egypt decades ago. Billy immediately recognized the old Lyrian script, which he still was able to master rather well, and therefore could translate the document into German with Ta's help. According to Ta, the original document is more than 8,000 years old. In addition to the above information, Christian Frenner further clarified the issue on Fig Forum by writing, "It is true that Billy had a parchment in his possession that he had shown to Wendell Stevens. This he did under the condition that Wendell would not tell anybody about it, which he, Wendell, did in the meantime. Obviously, Christian also wrote, it is important to note that this piece of paper or parchment, which, by the way, Quetzal has taken into his possession many years ago, is not identical with the parchment that we are discussing here in the Fig Forum, the one from Contact Reports 117. So it seems that Wendell was, in fact, shown an actual parchment by Billy, who told him how he had come across it in Egypt during his travels with Ascot. However, the parchment found in Egypt was not identical with the photographed document that Wendell then put on page 15 of Message from the Pleiades, Volume 4. Thus, Wendell evidently confused two stories with one another when creating Message from the Pleiades, Volume 4 many years after he had already collected all the data. It should also be noted that Michael Hesman's English translation of the writing shown above, which appears on page 18 of Message from the Pleiades, Volume 4, is very different from Christian's translation. Hesman's translation reads as follows. There was a prophet which was the prophet Enoch, which was Elias. Who was an important prophet of the Spirit of the Lord whose name was Moses. Who was the leader of the earth humans as ELIA, ISAIA, Jeremiah, JMMANUEL, MUHAMMED and BILLI. This spirit will reincarnate as a prophet. WHO will be born as a teacher of cosmic law, and he will enter the human race as one BILLI. WHO as one EDUARD. MEIER. WHO will be a teacher of the spirit. He walks in the light of spirit. It is unclear as to how such a difference arose, but Michael Husman was, indeed, working with very different information than the information that Christian Frenner was given. Nevertheless, MEIER's information given to Christian is the established translation of the ancient document that stands to this day. English BILLI, you owe me no thanks. But if you could still answer another question for me. Ta. 120. If it lies within the possibility of an answer? BILLI, I hope. Quetzal told me a month ago that by the senseless behavior of some group members, 2 people have been driven away, who had already belonged to the group once several thousand years ago as other personalities, and who should now likewise join the new group again and take on important tasks. May we know, perhaps, whom it concerns with these 2? Ta. 121. No, according to the given circumstances, it wouldn't be advisable to mention the names. 122. The impossible behavior or senseless behavior of some group members, as you call it, doesn't allow this. 123. In accordance with their still predominant, unbalanced, and destructive mentality, they would have the audacity to intervene with the 2 people or otherwise take selfish steps to introduce them, nevertheless, into the core of the group. 124. But this would, with certainty, have very bad consequences because the 2 feel so shocked by the impossible behavior and the derogatory and insulting ways of speaking of various group members that they would truly feel disgust in themselves and, from this, would take steps against the continued existence of the group. 125. But this isn't surprising because the human beings of Earth, who are ruled by emotions, are very susceptible to changes in mentality of an emotional origin. 126. But that such negative emotions were excited in these 2 people, the guilt for this clearly lies with various group members. 127. Truly, there can be no talk here of a normal, evolution-conditioned error, but only of a guilt because the group members concerned acted against better knowledge with regard to their tasks and their mentality to be attained. BILLI, I understand, but Quetzal has also spoken of the fact that it is of importance that replacements must be used for these 2, and that the time periods of certain task fulfillments will shift through this. As he said, 2 descendants would have to be witnessed under certain circumstances, who would then have to stand as replacement and be prepared for their tasks. No details follow from his statements, however, so none as to whether it would have to concern female or male progeny, and also none as to who would have to give birth to this progeny. He only said that the mother, in any case, would have to be a virgin, and would also become a mother still as a virgin. If I have understood these things correctly, which I suppose, then the procreation of this progeny would have to concern an artificial insemination, right? That's what Quetzal confirmed to me anyhow. Ta. 128. That is of correctness because the social forms and laws prevailing with you only leave this possibility open, if no complications should appear. 129. Our formulated idea proceeds from the fact that a young and still virgin wife is found, who would commit herself to this and join your group in the core. 130. Or a still unmarried virgin would have to be found, who would like to be incumbent upon such an obligation but who, in this case, must have already attained the age of legal majority that is determined among you. 131. It would also be of necessity that the virgin concerned, in one case or another, would undergo a medical clearance, in order to let her virginity be attested before insemination. 132. But the same would also have to happen after the insemination, by what means it could be proven for the human beings of Earth that everything has its correctness. BILLI, And, is this step really unavoidable now? I mean, with this procreation of progeny? 133. Yes, this step may become unavoidable if certain things don't straighten themselves out again and if our overall task is still to be fulfilled. 134. Those who still haven't taken their obligation seriously until this day bear the guilt for this. 135. And I declare again that there must not be any talk here of an evolution-conditioned error but truly of a guilt, which was created maliciously and recklessly. Billy, and have you already found someone, I mean, a virgin who would be ready for this task fulfillment? 136. No, because so far, we couldn't strive for it. 137. Perhaps someone could be found by your own initiative, who would be more serviceable to the matter than if we would have to strive for it. Billy, that might be a rather difficult case. But tell me, how should such an artificial insemination take place according to your idea? 138. Two possibilities would be possible. 139. The first would, indeed, be quite impractical and even disagreeable to us, namely that an artificially induced fertilization would be carried out, for which we would have to put the appropriate virgin in a hypnopsychic state, through which she would release a self-fertilization. 140. The second possibility would be that earthly physicians would, through a natural expenditure, carry out a transfer of sperm from a suitable man and maneuver the sperm in the normal way of transfer into the body of the virgin obligating herself to this. 141. But this would mean that the suitable man must then, in truth, also openly be the father of the progeny, and these would also carry his features and genes. 142. This second way would, in our view, be the more valuable and more realistic one, for then, a paternal power would be given to the progeny, which is of great importance for a human being. Billy, but now, you still haven't answered my question about the gender of the progeny. 143. That is of correctness. 134. The gender of the progeny is unimportant because we hope that if everything can happen as planned and calculated, a complete equality and equal rights in all things of the given principles will arise between female and male life forms in your group. Billy, I infer from your words that you won't decide finally until the remaining 3-month time period has expired. 145. That is also of correctness, my friend. Billy, and what is to be with the progeny, then? On the one hand, these would have to be provided for, and on the other hand, a virgin can, indeed, only give birth to a progeny once virginally. 146. That, too, is of correctness. 147. If everything should, nevertheless, still happen after the best success, the group itself would have to accept the responsibility for the entire livelihood and all other necessities of the descendants. 148. The corresponding virgin, if a suitable one can be found and she is willing to bear the obligation, would be fertilized a second time in a non-virgin state, since her virginity would, indeed, be taken by the first birth. Billy, then that means, therefore, that only one virgin would have to be found. But on the basis of what criteria would this have to be chosen, then? 149. If the finding lies within the initiative of the group, then we would clarify whether the person concerned is suited to an obligation. Billy, that would certainly be a help. 150? Right. 151. It would be important to make sure that the virgin concerned wants to receive her obligation for the preservation of the group and the fulfillment of the task. 152. But all of this can only become topical if it should turn out in the month of March, 1979, that everything can continue. 153. Only then will it also prove itself as to whether the progeny addressed must be taken into consideration at all or not. Billy, I understand. So let's wait for the time and see what all still arises until then. Quetzal, 11. An unpleasant determination is still to be issued. Ta, 154. I thought of that, and I will explain it immediately. 155. Taking into account the fact that through certain group members, the internal affairs and secrets are carried outward recklessly and even in a treacherous form, and become passed on to outsiders, and also to elements that are hostile-minded toward the group and the mission, we must determine, unfortunately, that in the future, the contact reports transmitted by us may no longer be handed over to the fallible group members, when this concerns reports like this one and the previous ones. 156. If it has already happened that the last reports were given to the fallible group members, then these must be withdrawn under all circumstances. 157. Not a word may be passed on about reports not handed over to these group members, not even to group candidates who have not yet been received into the core group. 158. Whoever offends against this arrangement, however, shall be excluded from the core group according to the statutes that have been found by us to be right, no matter who these are. 159. Henceforth, these reports for the fallible ones may still, at most, be looked through or read aloud strictly in the group's internal core area, but at the same time, also no notes may be made about that. 160. The original reports have to be accommodated in such a way that no unauthorized ones can have access to them. Billy, is it really so bad that this measure has to be taken? Ta, 161. It is, unfortunately, necessary and unavoidable. Billy, we have really come rather far with our group, which I must say. Ta, 162. In the negative sense, that is, unfortunately, of regrettable correctness. 163. But if all fallible group members now finally strive for everything in the most sincere and good form, everything is still able to turn to the good, but at the same time, shifts occur in the schedules, which cannot be changed anymore. 164. There are now still about 3 months available, a time that should be 3 times more than enough to let the necessary change in mentality in the individual fallible group members become effective. 165. And it is to be said from the start that we can no longer allow any excuses at all to be valid, so therefore, no one should propose the idea again that the group members are still only human beings of Earth, who still need great evolution. 166. We know very well how the matters of a relevant form stand with the human beings of Earth, so therefore, we also know the truthful values of how long a human being of Earth needs for a corresponding change. Billy, I did, indeed, already tell you, that I am of the same view, and I cannot understand it, that one always wants to hide behind flimsy excuses, like some group members do. The worst excuses, so I find, are that one always wants to give the outward appearance that one understands everything very much and very well, and always wants to say that one must still work on oneself very much, that one is glad that one can move once again in the free nature at the center and feel so very happy, which truly doesn't harmonize together with what is then done, however. In particular, I am referring to the fact that one positions oneself against another human being in a manner that is truly to cry and scream about, for one tramples another down, cuts him down and hates him, just because one is unsympathetic, and this antipathy is usually generated in the troublemaking person himself unjustifiably and out of one's own wrong feelings and thoughts, because the relevant human being alone does not come to grips with himself, because his speeches of all knowledge and all understanding are only hollow and empty phrases that should cover one's own inadequacy, weakness, and fallibility. That, I find to be absolutely sickening. Sorry, but one truly can't express that differently. Damn it, not even children behave in such a way, for these let themselves talk with each other and teach each other. The adults, however, believe themselves to be grown up in thought and consciousness, and believe in their damn logic that they would think and act logically, even though they only mess things up because they don't notice how damn crazy and childish they are. Semias, 28. Unfortunately, that's the truth. 29. Your words could not be more appropriate. 30. But please, don't excite yourself again because of that. 31. It's enough already with what has been. Billy, I won't excite myself. Quetzal, 12. That's also better, my friend. Your nerves wouldn't endure it. 13. It would be very well appropriate that more consideration is taken on this by the group members. 14. For my part, I've altered the device for you in some things, according to which it should now be functionally suited for you. 15. After our discussions, I would like to check it, if you agree with that. Billy, of course, I would be glad if the thing functions. But what I wanted to ask already for a long time, how's it going, actually, with Asina and her team? Semias, 32. I am very sorry, dear friend, but they are all away. Billy, you mean that they have flown back to their home world? Semias, 33. Sure. 34. Their ship was repaired, and so, they have already been on the journey home for 6 days. 35. Unfortunately, as a result of the dumb story with the dispute, it has arisen that you could no longer see each other because you responded to no calls whatsoever, even though I called you in order to bring you and Asina together again, since you still wanted to take a photo of her. Billy, well, then it has just fallen through. That is, indeed, a pity, but it probably isn't to be changed anymore, or will she, perhaps, come here once again at a later point in time? Semias, 36. That is hardly to be expected. Billy, well, then just not. Semias, 37. I also can't change it, unfortunately. Billy, what I would still like to say, the last times, Quetzal has given the report transmissions to me slower than usual because I have a new typewriter, with which I am not yet so fast. Would it be possible that you, too, transmit this and the next reports to me a little more slowly, so that I keep up with the typing? Everything is, indeed, still so incredibly fast. Semias, 38. Sure, but Quetzal has now developed a control gear device, with which it is now possible to type faster. 39. So there will be no problems. 40. Moreover, I will transmit this report to you in several steps. 41. As the first step, our first conversation, the present one, shall be transmitted to you first, then after that the other concerns in 2 or 3 parts. Billy, then you intend quite a lot. According to your words, you still have much to say. Ta, 167. Yes, and indeed, very important things. Semias, 42. It concerns your promise given to me. Billy, oh, now I understand. It probably concerns the things regarding the American government? Semias, 43. Sure, I would now like to clarify this to you. Billy, do that, my child, but tell me, at our last meeting, I don't mean that of last Saturday, which ended so unpleasantly, you made a strange comment regarding my promise, that I must keep this even if very unpleasant things would happen. I thought about that for a long time and found that you must have either performed a look into the future or a probability calculation, because for sure, your words were aimed at what had happened between Quetzal and me, right? Semias, 44. Surely, but I also knew that despite your great and justified rage, you would still reflect on your task again and would continue it. Billy, and you think that I will still do that even if in March of single quote 79, a final diagnosis would prove that everything was, perhaps, a waste of time? Semius, 45. No, you would no longer do that. I know that very well. 46. This time, you had already fallen too deeply into negation with regard to a continuing and finishing of the task than that you would raise the power to exert yourself anew upon another precipitation of this kind. 47. We are absolutely clear to ourselves about that. 48. Your nerves wouldn't overcome this anymore and everything would collapse, which would also be a reason why we, too, wouldn't continue any longer because we may not endanger your life, which we would inevitably do, however, if we put a repeated demand of this kind on you. 49. But we would sooner let our entire task be destroyed by irrational, wrong, and despicable elements, before we would put you in such a danger. 50. Even your current decision, we are all very clear to ourselves about this, goes far beyond your own power and even beyond your last reserves, exactly according to the observations of my father, who has analyzed Quetzal and you in secondary science work and knows with absolute certainty that we demand very much more of you with your current decision than what your last power reserves allow because the power demand exceeds these by several times. 51. Look here, this measuring instrument behind your back. You haven't even noticed it. It indicates here your physical and psychical power reserves. 52. And as you see here, these are very close to the minus value. 53. This display here, however, which I, Quetzal, and Father have already had our eyes on for a good while and attentively observe, shows us how you generate new forces out of your area of consciousness and constantly force these values up again from your psyche and physical body. 54. As you yourself see, the display here steadily rises to higher values, and within just a short hour, you will already have more than a third of your power reserves again. 55. In 2 hours, there will already be 2/3, and in 3 hours, your power reserves will be completely normal again, even though they were below the minus value when you came here. 56. Similarly, you will also still further increase your forces afterwards and will enrich the normal, constant forces of the physical body and the psyche again. 57. But similarly, Quetzal has also done this, which we could also determine with him with this measuring apparatus. 58. But how you bring this to pass, both of you, that is puzzling to us, because normally, human beings not of your type often require many months and even years to regenerate these forces fully, while human beings of our sensitivity still require even more time when it comes to such decays of forces. 59. You both are really very puzzling to us, and from this, it arises that our sciences have a new object of research, which was previously unknown to them. Billy, then in the future, Quetzal will probably play experimental rabbit. Quetzal, 16. It will be necessary for me to be submitted to tests and analyses, etc. 17. That will be unavoidable because the whole thing represents a phenomenon, whose deciphering can be of great importance for many life forms because perhaps they can acquire, through an exact investigation and solution of the things, the same ability that the two of us possess and that was previously unknown among us. Billy, then just nicely let yourself be broken down into your constituents, my son. But see to it that someone then numbers these correctly. Quetzal, 18. Thus, you please me again, my friend. Semius, 60. Sure, your joking sounds like it did at earlier times, before the deplorable grievances found their beginning in the group. 61. We hope that soon, everything will again be like it was before. 168. This would be my greatest joy. Semius, 62. Mine, too, but now, we must turn to other things. 63. Listen closely and separate the following out of the normal contact report upon the later transmission, with which I will already begin today at 5:45 p.m. Translator's note: the following section is Fig's English translation of the proclamation, which was made on the 5th of January, 1979, and then sent to the elders shortly afterwards. This is how it appears word for word on pages 321-325 of the German version of the Pleiadian/Pleiadian Contact Reports, Block 3. English to the Government of the United States of America Proclamation 1. This is a proclamation from the Pleiadian delegate for Earth from the planet Era and a star region of the Pleiades, to the Government of the United States of America on the planet Earth. 2. This proclamation results in cause of a petition of an American civilian by name Lee J. Elders, over our only earthly mediator, Billy, the prophet of the new time. 3. The petition asked for help for the United States of America, for certain fields of development. 4. The Pleiadian Earth delegates are past scrutinized consultation to the home, advising forces ready to be helpful to the government of the United States, and to the nation, in form of necessary advices, but under exclusion of all technical advices, war technical and war strategical assistances, as much as these do in no form serve for a true peace and for the performance of the creational and by natural laws conditioned laws and bids. 5. For realization of our taken in consideration assistance must be settled conditions from our side, which are without except and tries and intrigues to fulfill, to observe and to respect by the government of the United States. A. Contacts to us. The delegates for Earth from the planet Era and the star region of the Pleiades are and will be exclusively the function of our mediator Billy, the prophet of the new time. B. Tries to bring in other contact persons would get revenged with stuff of our advices. Same with tries of espionage and pursuits for our forces, into which is included our contacting person. 2. C. Tries to bring in our contacting person Billy into scientific and political examinations for analyses etc. would get revenged by the at once stop of our advices. So is also valid while any wanton or evil-minded menace of his life, or of the life of his relatives and members of his group. Same is valid at these while tests for gaining of analyses. Neither our mediator nor his relatives and group members are ever allowed to get subjected to hypnotical, suggestive, alcoholical, drugly or technical examinations. D. Everywhere in the earthly global region the government of the United States of America has to care for the physical and psychical welfare of our contact person, his relatives and group members, and to give protection to him sufficiently. E. Pleiadian air and space flight gears and similar apparatuses etc. ought never be menaced in their missions by aggressive actions. F. Determinative orders and true purpose of peace and for education of the earth human being in respect to the truth and the spiritual lessons have to get observed, when such are given by us over the way of our mediator, Billy Edward Albert MEIER. G. Alone the uppermost representative of government of the United States of America is acceptable for signatures and consultations to our mediating contact person. Representatives arranged below the presidentship cannot obtain acknowledgement. 6. Religions of cultic form, like they are given on the planet Earth, embody positions of might against the earth human being, of spiritual and physical slavery by heresies. They but 2. Embody the highest possibility of exploitation in each manner. We Pleiadians do not know any cult religions, to which we were devoted or into which we would arrange us, like also would not do most of the human residents of the universe, because cultic religions lead to dissension and desires for might, to murder and killing and war, by what whole nations become eradicated. From smaller cult religions rise large cult religions, splitting themselves past certain time regularly into sects with fanatic and deadly background and physical, psychical and spiritual reach, as well. short time before, the United States have experienced, to where the delusion cult religion leads. Well-known politicians and many of their own have opened doorways for a new cult sect leader with name Jim Jones, to get able to indulge to his delusion under the fanatism of his adherers. The end of it was thousandfold, coerced murder and suicide among the sect members. Found were of the dead ones less than 1/9, as the other murdered or suicided bodies of the sect members are fairly diffused over very far regions. But as well, sect members became murdered in order of this man Jones during his time of action. Such victims are not few ones, and all got hidden in the ground by their slaughters, in what cause they cannot get found. Near to 211 human beings have lost their life by suicide, having got ordered hypnotically by the insane Jim Jones. And still many more than 140 human beings should die now by hand of murderers, as Jim Jones ordered it long before his death. This is the result of the delusion, for which government officers and other politicians of the United States have offered a hand, because they, as 90% of their nation, too, are captured in deadly, cultic religion belief, and this ways tread under feet the real truth and tear into dirt. The mass delusion, eventing in the border regions of jungle and the land of Guyana, consists on a very typical American illness of consciousness, namely in a confusion of consciousness. They all were American civilians and members of the insane Jim Jones Popular Temple. Sponsored in America, they went out into the jungle of Guyana, towards their sure death. Sponsored by prominent white politicians. In the mad belief, a God being sith them, who in truth not does exist, they followed the pretended and sponsored by American politicians wrong prophet, to end their lives 1 year later under shots from murderers' weapons and by potassium cyanide and suicide. Never before had occurred anything comparable on the planet Earth, made certain very scrutinized by us in America, but the impossible got possible, as the American government and many of her politicians and their cult delusion sane reached their hands for this, as also 90% of the American people, which has fallen to cultic religious forms of belief, like it could already get foreseen about 200 years ago, when the American land got settled by sectarianly outsiders from Europe, who had to emigrate from there and then in America slaughtered the native, bred human races, while they still even boasted themselves of their delusional belief. According to their mad belief, their conscience also admitted to them, to rob in the continent of Africa their living human beings of the different black races and to bring them to America as slaves, to maltreat them there badly and to murder them. All these human beings, and their descendants as well up to the present day, got subjected to an industrialization, finding not its equals on the planet Earth in any parallel. From that resulted a wicked splitting of all communities, as far as such it all had consisted, being but a rarity. The pretentive communities normally but were in truth nothing more than cultic religious confederations, and only and alone in purposes, fundamentally but without true love, which is of importance for a real community. As yet all alone was built up answering the purpose, and still is today, faithful to the cult religion, the fellow creature only to be there to get exploited, nothing real and good thing could rise from it. As now all was constructed on pure occultic religion, a not existing God became glorified for the creator of all things, until fanatism, from what matter the different sects could grow themselves up, as nowhere else on the earth. So in America also no religion wars were done, which would have stopped the continuous spreading sect being and so far would have fastened the motherly religion, that greater sect transgressions would have got prevented, which unavoidable once a day had to lead to mass murders, as is the case since decades continuous progressing, and now by the mad fanatic Jim Jones and his follower has found a bloody top for the first, although Jim Jones did not believe a single jot of his cultic religious tissue of lies, that one time more shows. The cult religion's leaders and sect leaders personally do not believe their heresies, which they urge upon their believers for observance, to bring them by such under their ban. The United States of America were in midst of the religious wars, which would have remoted very many human beings from the delusion of religion and would have made them for truly thinking human beings. But as the America immigrants and the from them risen population mainly consisted and consists in cultic religious fanatics, so the population evidently suffers from missing religious collisions, which necessarily would have led many human beings towards the truth, like in most of the other lands of the world has evented. Alright, also in all other lands of earth the cult religions have led to very wicked degenerations and sect being, but they never, besides it the since ever thirsty for power about the world jury, the bloodthirsty jury, were able to take such sizes, as are in America. Namely in these other countries missed for the believers, sectarians and fanatics the necessary, despaired decision, to force their goals by all means, because it was known to them, too many human beings have fallen, by the suffered religious wars, from the cult religions, and in cognition of the truth have turned themselves away from each deity, towards the truth, that singly and alone the creation is the origin of all life and universe, but never a god or God's son, being alone the chimera of might-thirsty earth human beings. But the desperate decision of the sectarian American population is very typical for the United States of America and its inhabitants. Their uprootal and the huge digression from the real truth of the creation and her laws and bids has led to an overburdening sect being in blind fanatism, and by this, to a limitless readiness without any deliberation, to go until the extremist and the very last, to gain the community's experience. Such is so much expressed in America, like nowhere else on earth. Being so, witnesses in hard reality the case Jones with his adherers and sponsors. A proof, which will embody one of the most gruelful for the manic and uncontrollable desire of the Americans for a real community, which in consequence of the cultic religious fanatism belief of the American population never existed in their land and also will not exist, if the American people does not soon set himself free from his delusion belief, and his degenerations, and finally turns himself towards the truth. 7. By different American persons with influence of the politics Jim Jones could lead his delusion sect to that, what had come up with her. Such events must not repeat, and means have to be initiated to prevent from such occurrences like these. Already further, same like sects exist, which can lead to similar and partly even greater slaughterings, when they get not stopped. It has to be strived by government of the United States for to ligature that sect being, as well as the rise of new sects. This represents the fundamental condition, before an advising help can be given from the Pleiadian forces. Same as in this condition, that the people of the United States of America gets made attentive by all public communication means on the danger of the cult religions, and becomes taught of the truth by the spiritual lesson. In first line these truths have to be announced by the TV broadcasting, in an proclamation, which will be destinied by us. 8. Our this ways given proclamation exists only one time. Should happen, that it gets not noticed, and this within a space of time of 7 months, 30. June 1979, then our offer for assistance is lapses irrevocable, and there would no more be agreed into further tries for contacts in any form. By this, a space of time for the decision is fixed for the nation/population of the United States of America and for the government of the United States of America until the date of the 30th of June 1979. Would not arrive an attitude from the government of the United States of America in acceptable form until this date, personally signed by the presidentship of the government, then the try for contact will be assumed for null, without the chance for a repeat of the same. 9. For the rightness of this proclamation vouch the for this case delegated Ta, Quetzal and Semyas, in commanding position of the leadership of the Pleiadian forces on Terra. We are the ones who sign responsible for the right written fixation of our proclamation by our earthly contacting person Billy, for whom we carry bail, each from him offered and noted word according truly to our explanations. Translator's note: this concludes Fig's original translation of the proclamation. The rest is that of Benjamin Stevens. English with the date of the 21st of March, 1979, Billy received a response to the proclamation of the Pleiadians to the government of the United States of America, which was obviously written by Lee elders and sent to Billy. Whether Lee elders had passed the proclamation on to the government of the USA, this remained in the dark for Billy. Anyhow, a letter from the USA government was missing, such as was requested by the Pleiadians. In response, the Pleiadians withdrew their proposal and their proclamation and definitively distanced themselves from it and from the USA. See Contact 122 of the 6th of April, 1979. Billy: and, do you suppose that the American government will deal with these conditions? Ta. 169. This will be their matter alone. Billy: that probably means that you have not yet thought about this further. Ta. 170. That corresponds to the correctness, for everything points to the fact that too many things are not taken seriously enough by the government of this country, but on the other hand, much also points to the fact that the cultic religious fanaticism of the rulers and the population will continue to kick the truth with its feet, which is why we must push for a short-term decision and have to set the given conditions. Billy: but now, if the government doesn't deal with this, what then? Ta. 171. Then all further attempts would be pointless because we would never turn to the United States of America again in this form. Billy: but that would somehow be unfair, for also in America, there are many human beings who know about your existence and strive in all forms to live and to learn according to correctness, in order to be of service thereby to the truth and their evolution, and therefore, also to the entire plan of creation. Quetzal. 19. That is of correctness, and these human beings of earth should not have to live in want. 20. Therefore, it is given to them that they follow you and bring a union into being in their country, as it is mentioned in your statutes. Billy: that's fair, I think. Quetzal. 21. That is of correctness, but we should first discuss other things about that when the time and the events require this. 22. Today, we have to discuss more important things than those, which still need no decision. 23. What I have to mention as the first is this. 24. For 2 years now, you have prepared yearly predictions for the arriving events, and have disseminated these according to good capability. 25. As you were instructed, you also passed these on to numerous and prominent public publication organs and to various governmental agencies with appropriate notes and citations. 26. Unfortunately, the response to all these efforts was null and void, for not a single success resulted from it, even though your predictions were of the utmost accuracy. 27. The authoritative human beings and rulers didn't let themselves be roused, in order to evoke certain changes. 28. This, even though the predictions were of such accurate precision that not a single point announced in advance was to be found in these, which would not arrive. 29. Nevertheless, it steadfastly remains in the old, and one does not listen to your warnings. 30. Since it is now like that, it was decided by us that in the future, you should no longer strive in this area and should make no more predictions, for they, despite their precise accuracy, are ineffective and are not able to influence or change the materialistic mentality of the human beings of Earth. 31. Useless work should not be done by you, and therefore, you should make no more predictions in the future. Billy: that saves me a great deal of work and time, whereby I can then spend the latter on something else. I have in mind that if everything should be good in the group by the month of March, 1979, then I will finally work out the spiritual teaching course and then try to disseminate this, I am thinking that I will start this from the most minimal, basic knowledge and prepare 4 monthly teaching letters in each case, and these shall be prepared or drawn up in such a way that a home study and a distance study become possible. Semyas, 64. That is a very good idea, for through that, you can take in very many human beings, who find no way to get in direct contact with you. 65. But at the same time, consider that this requires financial resources again, and that you should also finally provide for your family within a good framework and should create some financial security for them. Billy, I have thought of that, which is why I would like to couple the teaching letters with certain conditions and with a fixed price. I was thinking of about 10 Swiss francs per month. Ta, 172. I am glad that you have finally become more reasonable in this regard, but your price mentioned might be too low. 173. Therefore, I would like to determine for you that you have to set the sales price of the teaching courses at 25 Swiss francs per person per month. Billy, that's a bit much, I think. Ta, 174. My view on that runs on other tracks. 175. You live on the earth, which is dominated by materialism. 176. The human being of earth is settled on this materialism and acts out his existence in accordance with this. 177. And since you necessarily have to live with the human beings of earth, the authorization is also given to you and your family that you can live among these human beings of earth within a good framework. 178. In order to be able to do this, however, you and your family need a certain financial amount, which enables you this framework of living. 179. With the teaching courses per your idea, you now have the possibility that you can finally bring these financial means together and, perhaps, put aside something for times of need, which is even your right. 180. Here, I would also like to determine, contrary to the statutory determinations, that the means that are to be received through these teaching courses are not only to be your property at 50%, but rather at full extent, because financially, you have a lot to make up for your family, which has truly been living in impoverished conditions up to now. 181. Moreover, the appropriation of 25 Swiss francs per person per month mentioned by me isn't set too high because your work is truly priceless, so it cannot be measured in monetary amounts, etc. Billy, you speak a strong word, Ta, but I still find the price to be too high. Ta, 182. I explained to you that this price determination represents a determination on my part, which you should not deny now. 183. In case of need or inflation, the amount can and should be increased at a later time. Semyas, 66. Sure, that is also my view. Quetzal, 32. I can only align myself with that. Billy, okay, then it shall just be like that. Well, I will ask for 25 Swiss francs. Semyas, 67. That is good. If only you were as reasonable in other things. Billy, what do you mean by that now? Semyas, 68. Quetzal will enlighten you about this. 69. It concerns your safety. Quetzal, 33. That is of correctness. 34. Already months ago, we drew your attention to the fact that all of you should exercise your supervisory function at night in the center, which you have omitted up to now, however. 35. I would urgently like to reiterate this to you and to suggest this task to you again. 36. Your enemies haven't become less, quite the opposite. 37. You know that 5 attempts have already been made to kill you, and the latest incident will not have been the last. 38. It could very well be that already in a short time, an assassination attempt is undertaken again, as various signs point to that. 39. Hence, Be very watchful and don't go along without your weapon. 40. It may be that you will be shot at again. However, it is also possible that your vehicle will be used again for an assassination attempt, as this was, indeed, already the case at an earlier time, as you know very well. 41. Sufficient caution is, therefore, appropriate, my friend. Billy, I'll remember that, but you yourself know that we are too few people to set up an effective night watch. Quetzal, 42. That is of correctness. Therefore, it would be necessary that more group members reside in the center. 43. In particular, male group members would be of importance. Billy, but who? Ta, 184. We have discussed these things. 185. At the springtime, Engelbert and his family will live in the center, but just one other male person is not sufficient. 186. There would still have to be one more. 187. We have found the only possible solution, which refers to H188. He should finally bear the obligation, draw close to you all, and finally be freed from his treacherous thoughts and actions. Billy, which H do you mean? We have two of those. Ta, 189. It is only possible for one of the two, namely for H.S. Billy, you know, however, that he strictly refuses and that he thinks, feels, and acts more and more destructively as well as treacherously toward the group and the mission. Ta, 190. That is well known to me. 191. His refusal, however, isn't based on the senseless grounds that he is not in a position to do so for this or that reason, which are truly no grounds, however. 192. In truth, he doesn't want to do this only because certain things don't appeal to him, which he would then finally have to omit because he would then have to carry out the already long-needed change in himself. 193. He is, however, the only real option that is currently available. 194. He should finally reflect on his obligation and his duty. 195. That should be clearly stated to him one last time, and he should not resort to excuses again, which cannot be acknowledged because they only represent apparent reasons, which rest in his treacherous attitude. 196. Rightly, which I must say, he should have already been excluded from the group long ago, like also his brother. Billy, then there is still also the problem of accommodation, for which I already have a solution in mind, however. I've worked out a plan as to how we could still create more living space in a cheap way. Ta, 197. Then this problem should, indeed, be solved by that. Billy, if the group agrees with it, then yes. Ta, 198. Good, then for today, I have discussed everything with you that was to be discussed between us, except that I don't want to get involved further with the negative side of H, for I have said everything necessary in this connection just now. Quetzal, 44. Also for my part, I have said what was necessary in this regard. Semyas, 70. I have nothing further to add, except that you should please be very, very careful because different signs point to the fact that already in a short time, something unpleasant will approach you, and at the same time, this unpleasantness would be directed against your life. Billy, you probably don't know something more precise about that. Otherwise, you would, indeed, say it. I will do my best to be on guard. Farewell then, to all of you, and also pay attention to yourselves. By the way, I am still to give you all dear greetings from everyone, which I shouldn't forget, and indeed, in spite of all the whining and fighting among one another. Semyas, 71. I am very pleased about that. 72. Dear thanks, until we meet again, my friend. Billy, bye together. Ta, 199. Be watchful and be well disposed towards peace and your health. Quetzal, 45. I will come to you again next week. 46. Until then. 47. Pay attention to yourself and farewell. Billy, my goodbye to you, solemn company. Quetzal, 48. So now, I will give you our declaration for Elsie regarding the group of underscores of the center, which you call the Semyas Silver Star Center. 49. It has arisen through various calculations and evaluations that if the center is to be preserved in its task, this should be imparted in a form of group of underscores, which offers the greatest security. 50. All group members in the existing group were examined and analyzed with respect to this responsible task in all aspects of characters and emotions, and the most important foundations of the recognizing and understanding of the task and the teaching. 51. The result yielded that among the existing members of the group, not a single force is to be found who would do justice to this task, which is why we had to move the progeny of the group members into our attention. 52. It has been found that at a later time, group of underscores would have to assume the leadership of the center, as our calculations have yielded this. 53. His initiative will also be decisive in that the task is continued in an administrative form. 54. At his side will be group of underscores, who will be of importance as a representative, since he can, with great certainty, never allow himself to be inserted into the military forces, which would be worthless for our task. 55. But also, group of underscores will have to assume an important role in the task area, by what means all group of underscores form a very important connection, which is classified as a mutual group of underscores collaboration. 56. Therefore, it is given, as our calculations yield, that group of underscores is to be used as a later driving and preserving force of group of underscores of the whole center, but at the same time, group of underscores is to be used for the guidance and preservation of the same, which is to be added by us as well-recognized statutes as a foundation. 57. In the right to a say in the guidance and administration of the center, group of underscores is to be included because group of underscores is of decisive importance, who will also receive this if a group of underscores force should fall out by passing away. 58. For the administration of group of underscores, according to earthly laws, the group of underscores should be used, if it should turn out that this would be necessary due to unforeseen circumstances. 59. First and foremost, this duty applies to you, who would have to take on this task. 60. After your demise, group of underscores would be obliged to this task, but group of underscores alone would not be master of this. So, group of underscores and assistance is to be added by Engelbert, his wife Maria, Bernadette, and by Madeleine and Jacobus, who would be able to master this task in a common unit. 61. But this only applies if you had to lay down your task prematurely by passing away, and thus, your guidance would be forfeited. 62. This regulation is to be settled and held in writing in an earthly official way by Elsie the next time, according to which after an unforeseen passing away on her part, the order would take its course. 63. But it should happen that up to the time of her passing, she keeps the administration in her hands, while you should still bear the guidance and the organization, as this was the case up to now. 64. This is our declaration, as we have worked it out through our very exact calculations, and which you are to convey to Elsie as her sole knowledge, after which she can act accordingly. 65. Moreover, it is already Elsie's most inherent will and thought to regulate the group of underscores of the center in this form. Billy, and all that is over my head, for I am not and cannot be in agreement with it. I have carried out a look into the future and have found that group of underscores will stray away from the task of the mission in such a sense, and that both group of underscores will go their own ways, so I group of underscores. Therefore, I am for the fact that we regulate everything differently, and indeed, that we definitively make the center group property, precisely by making everything association property. Quetzal 66. We will take counsel over your proposal and also consult the High Council.
All right, folks, thanks for listening to Ohio Exopolitics. I'll be back online before too long, hopefully, and do some shows on the Billy MEIER case where I actually talk and don't always play these clips. But there's just so much material to get through, I thought it'd be useful to do these clips and make them available as much as possible. Have a good afternoon, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.